Welcome to AstroTwins Radio, your cosmic GPS for life, love, and everything written in the stars. We're Tali and Ophira Edut, the AstroTwins, here to decode the astrology of the moment and help you navigate your destiny like a pro.
Hello, everyone. It is the week of March 16th to 22nd. Tali here in Seattle.
And Ophi in rainy New York, getting ready for official spring, the spring equinox. That's
We
all
got a
coming
watery
this
week until then. We really
Watery
do.
week.
We have the countdown, the last 5 days of Pisces season, Mercury retrograde in Pisces, and Pisces new moon on Wednesday. But that all changes this Friday as fiery Aries takes the helm and Mercury turns direct, and we have the balancing equinox. So will that bring balance to our world? Well, we're going to
Maybe
get
a
into
little.
that. We're going to get into that.
Well, yeah, maybe we can intentionally bring some balance or, bring a moment of balance at least. But yeah, it's quite a year as we knew it would be. And this week is very interesting in many ways because of the shift from water to fire. And a little something I'm going to talk about at the end, which is a comet or believed to be called Three-Eye Atlas. Some of you may have heard of it. A lot of people haven't. People have either heard about it and gone down the rabbit hole or have heard nothing at all. So it's fading out of our sight today as we're recording. So it's been around since July and has brought a lot of prophetic astronomy, astrology overlaps that, I don't know, I thought it would be fun and intriguing to talk
You went
about.
down a serious rabbit hole. We'll
I have
save
been
that to the
known to.
end. And while you
Mhm.
were, I was in like a trance, like nap. I don't know. I hate taking naps and I rarely do. And sometimes when I do, it's like, okay, a little astral travel
You're
going.
not the
So
only person. So this is really pegged to Mercury in Pisces. I have been hearing from a lot of people. Now, Pisces rules the subconscious and our dreams and the right brain, while Mercury rules the left brain and our analytical thinking and communication and speaking. So, Mercury retrograde in Pisces has really messed with a lot of people's sleep. You are not the only person who took a long nap today. I didn't, but others I know did. Um, some people are reporting wild dreams, not being able to sleep. That is all the work of Pisces. So, the entire time that Mercury has been retrograde since February 26th until March 20th, the sun's been in Pisces. So, they've been traveling together. Mercury has been retrograde in Pisces alongside the sun for almost all of Pisces season.
and we've
So, we
also had
really are getting.
Mars, the planet of war, there
Yeah,
too.
since March 2nd until April 9th. So that is also another weird contrast. Pisces is dreamy and secretive and kind of vague and indirect and hidden, whereas Mars is combative. It's the warrior. It's in your face and the opposite of subtle. So Mars in Pisces is tricky. Mercury in Pisces is tricky. It's like mixed messages galore, secret operations,
Yeah.
all the
The
things that have been.
heaviness of it is really, I think, Pisces can also make you feel a sense of crisis, victimhood, sacrifice. And we've seen, this year has been so incredibly heavy and hard already. And it's like the fire horse. So the energy that it's bringing, as well as Neptune and Saturn moving into Aries, we've talked about this a lot. There's signatures of war and overwhelm. And, we still have the North Node, the lunar North Node in Pisces as well. So it's like, is everyone under a trance, or are we just feeling, there's a feeling of helplessness that has pervaded, I think, especially since the United States and Israel bombed Iran and now have gone on to Lebanon, and now we're basically in World War III with, all sorts of things. Now the water, Pisces energy, and with this Pisces new moon coming on the 18th, we've had storms, we've had leaks, we've had taps. I mean, a lot of the war is centering around the Strait of Hormuz in Iran. Iran controls those waterways, which oil has to go through. And as a result, oil prices have gone through the roof. And people are saying the one person who really is benefiting from that is Vladimir Putin. And it's not even been a secret. This is very Piscean kind of conspiracy theory, but not even a conspiracy because the quiet part has been said out loud. Is that there's a vision among MAGA that the United States controls the Western world, China and Xi Jinping control, the Asian world, and Vladimir Putin controls the East, Eastern Europe and the Middle East, Africa. So they just want to carve up the world between three autocrats. And it's been spoken of, I mean, we talk politics on here. If you're listening for the first time, we should say, we bring the stars down to earth. That's what we do here, so
Well,
we're
one
going
of
to
the
talk about
things,
this planet
yeah.
too. That's really important to us as astrologers. We're not just going to be like, oh, and Jupiter is in Cancer right now. We're going to tell you and look at the world events and talk about what that means for us here. And right now, everything's being dubbed political, but it's so easy to name things politics. But the reality is, I think it was Gloria Steinem, or she said it again. We don't know who the original person who said it is. That the personal is political. When politicians are just thumbing their nose and giving the middle finger to democracy, and people don't feel like they have a say. There's the sacrifice of, a draft being imminent for US troops to go on the ground in Iran. It's a feeling of, we can't, it's not actually political, like it's happening over there in Washington, D.C. or the Kremlin. No, it's affecting all of us personally. Gas prices are going through the roof, which affects so many Americans. Now, the Republicans are trying to push the Save America Act, which is going to require extensive confusing voter ID laws,
Which is
which will
very Mercury
dissuade,
retrograde in Pisces
yeah,
feeling.
dissuade a lot of people from going to the polls. You get the feeling that, Steve Bannon, a Sagittarius, and Virgo Stephen Miller, and Capricorn Jared Kushner, and I don't know what Steve Witkoff are. The
I think
Steves.
it's a Cancer.
Yeah, these unappointed advisors who really are responsible for a lot of the strategy going on are, really having a heyday under the veil of this, elusive Piscean energy. I don't know. What do you think about that, Ophi? But that was thank you for
Yeah.
coming to my
Well,
TED Talk. I'm ranting,
well,
but
what I'm thinking about is that tomorrow is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, but also exactly 1 month since the year of the fire horse and the Aquarius
mm,
solar eclipse. So Susan Miller always said when we were learning from her back in the day, back in the 90s, she would say that eclipses had a span of 1 month before and 1 month after. And I always track that to be true. So here we're coming up on a month into the year of the fire horse after this Aquarian eclipse. And then a month from tomorrow, on April 17th, we have an Aries new moon. And that day there will be 7 planets in Aries, or
that's
heavenly
crazy.
bodies. Yeah, if you count
Mhm.
Chiron. So that's going to be a super
What
intense
planets are
day.
going to be in Aries for?
We've got the sun, moon, Mercury, planet of communication, Mars, the planet of war, Saturn, which is boundaries and leadership, Neptune, which is deception and healing, and Chiron, the wounded healer, all in Aries. Um, yeah, it's quite a concentration if you look at the chart of that day. So,
Hate to say it, but Aries is the warrior sign. And so, people keep asking, is this going to end? When is this going to end? And, it may even take till May to clear a bit.
yeah,
Gotta,
well, that day, the day of the Aries new moon, Uranus is at 29 degrees Taurus. It's at the very end, and we have talked about that degree. It's called the anaretic degree. It's the very last degree of a planet traveling through a zodiac sign. So, what's tricky about that is that it's a very charged day. So on top of all this Aries new moon, I mean, thank God it's a new moon and not a full moon where people tend to be a little bit more, because Aries is the sign. If I could try to put a little bit of an optimistic spin on it, even if I end up being wrong about that, Aries is the sign of new beginnings. It's the first sign of the zodiac. New moons also represent beginnings. Now, we don't know what's going to be beginning that day. Uranus in 29 degrees Taurus. It's leaving Taurus April 25th after 8 years there. So, well,
rejoice, Tauruses,
I've also been
rejoice.
looking at a very interesting phenomenon with the outer planets that we've been going through this in the first half of this year, specifically one that is really unusual, maybe even unprecedented, and involves the US, Iran, and Israel's charts from January
Yeah, that's
26th
fascinating.
to April 25th. So right now I sit at a crossroads. Do we talk about the Oscars or do we talk about the Middle East? And that is Mercury retrograde in Pisces
Interestingly,
right there.
almost no one talked about the Middle East at the Oscars last night, so we can just get that through that really quickly. Javier Bardem said
He's a Taurus, right?
end to war and free Palestine. There was really no other mention of it, just a few sort of subtle hints. There might have been because I was, busy getting up and down.
I don't think
Serving
there
people
were.
drinks, but it was highly apolitical. It was very safe. Um, Timothée Chalamet's cocky Capricorn ass got roasted a lot. They even had Misty Copeland come out. She's an amazing ballerina who came out and she did a dance during the Sinners performance. Of course, happy that Michael B. Jordan, an Aquarius with Virgo rising and Cancer moon, won Best Actor for Sinners. He's got a North Node in Aries, so that Saturn Neptune kind of activating that, bringing him out. Jessie Buckley has 6 planets in Capricorn. She won Best Actress, Best Female Actor. She does have Jupiter in Cancer, so she's in her Jupiter return. That happens every 12 to 13 years when Jupiter, the planet of good fortune, circles back into your sign. I almost said suckles. That's so
We had a
Cancerian.
Mercury retrograde moment.
Sean Penn, Best Supporting Actor. 1960 Leo with Virgo North Node. So he was having his nodal opposition, interestingly enough. So he wasn't present. He was actually in Ukraine doing some work there, right?
And this is kind of what we said about Leo. Leo with Jupiter in Cancer until June 30th. It's this low key year for Leos. Last week we were making a few predictions for the Oscars, and we said, Leos are going to be a little more low key until June 30th of this year. So, congrats to him for winning. He's also born in the year of the rat, which is the opposite sign of the horse in Chinese astrology.
A lot of oppositions.
Yeah, he's definitely in the under the radar, focused on other people and other things besides the spotlight, which for a Leo man, that's refreshing sometimes. So,
Totally. And well, Amy Madigan, uh, best supporting. I have not seen the movie, but everyone was like, it's so good. It's so good. So she has 6 planets in Virgo, but which could have, worked against her with the South Node in Virgo, but she's actually in her North Node return. She was born while the North Node was in Pisces, which is a time every 18 to 20 years where you really step into your own power. So happens when
Mhm.
you're like 18, mid to late 30s, mid 50s. And then Best Director Paul Thomas Anderson, he was there with his wife Maya Rudolph. He's a Cancer with a Pisces North Node. So he too was having his North Node return and Jupiter in his sign of Cancer. So congratulations to them. I'm
Yeah.
glad that we are able to see the stories. This was, like last year, I think it was that Honora one. And I was like, how did that
Oh
even
God, yeah.
happen? It was like a lazy, performance of a pseudo
And Aries, yeah.
stripper. Yeah. But
Well, there were also a couple of wins for inclusivity by two Sagittarius women.
hmm.
EJ from K-pop Demon Hunters, she's a
Oh,
Sagittarius,
she is? Oh,
and
cool.
yeah, she's December 6th. And I've actually, I have a secret obsession with K-pop that crops up from time to time. I'm not fully down the K-pop rabbit hole, but I had a BTS phase, and I actually really liked the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack. I don't know why, but I did. But I went down a rabbit hole of learning about EJ, especially after learning that she was also a Sagittarius with a Capricorn North Node. So she trained to be a pop star for 10 years. But by the time
Hmm.
she was good enough, they told her she was too old. So
Really?
she like was kind of heartbroken, but then she discovered SoundCloud and started putting her songs out on there. And was asked to be a songwriter and hadn't even considered that that could be a career for her. So when she was later discovered to do the soundtrack for K-pop Demon Hunters, she decided to sing that main song and discovered she had this crazy vocal range from all her training and didn't even
Hmm.
realize it. So it was a real it's a real triumphant story of a young woman who has really worked hard and stuck with it. And that's such a Sagittarius story. Like we will, especially with the Capricorn North Node, we will just keep trying until we hit the mark. So, and
Well,
then, um,
Autumn Cheyenne Durald Arkapaw was the cinematographer of
best
Sinners.
cinematographer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she's the first female to ever win that award of best
Mhm.
cinematographer. So go Sag, go. And she wore an amazing suit, like she skipped the whole gown, and she just gave
So,
such a
yeah.
really a powerful speech when she accepted. She's
Yeah, she had all the
Filipino, Black,
women
and Creole. Oh yeah, she had all the
stand up,
women stand
right?
up. Yeah, that was incredible. Yeah.
That was so
Hmm.
Sag. Go Sag Sisters winning Best Original Song, Best Cinematography, and just like really making it a moment to showcase how resilient women are. Like, not to hide how hard we work to get where we need to go, but also showing like the spirit that they have as well. So very inspiring. I thought both of them were. I did not watch the Oscars, but I watched I just cannot. I can't sit still in a lot of award shows, I admit. So I let Tali take that one for the team, and I watched the highlights on social media. I
I was
confess.
talking to friends a lot throughout, but it didn't.
I
It actually went
was,
by pretty quickly. I didn't bother with the red carpet at all. It
yeah, no.
wasn't. Yeah, I have now. I have
Someone
to
else
see
can talk about that.
one battle after another, one best picture, which I feel is so like like almost
Saturn
a
and
little bit,
Aries.
yeah, Saturn and Aries, Neptune and Aries. Neptune and Aries is really showing itself to be a signature of like the holy war and
Oh
the
my God,
manipulation and
yes.
weaponization of faith and religion. Neptune's a planet of, like we were talking about earlier, because it's a ruler of Pisces. It's now left its home sign of Pisces and moved on to Aries for 13 years this January 26th. and it's there
Yes, you
all
heard
the
that
way
right. 13
until,
years.
yes, 2039. So the way we kind of look, this is how we teach this in our Become Your Own Astrologer course, is that the planets are the actors in the movie of our lives. So Neptune is, the spiritual enchanter, the the guru, the shaman, the,
But
priest,
also
high
the
priestess.
Svengali kind of manipulator, snake charmer
It
as
can be
well.
all of those things. Yeah. It's like, just like Pisces is symbolized by two fish swimming in opposite direction. Neptune is god of the seas. So are you seeing an illusion? Are you seeing a reflection? Are you able to see what's below? Everything's murky. So where Neptune goes, we have the ability to, kind of meditate, get into flow state, get really fluid, but we can also be deceived. And so now that it's in Aries, the sign that's about battle and combat and war, it's like we are being led around, and there's so many hidden agendas that are now turning violent, and
Yeah.
also just even being done in the name of religion, and so this is a good segue into what you discovered, Ophi,
Yeah.
about
Something that
um
dawned on me, really. And, interestingly, in mythology, Neptune and Pluto and Jupiter were all brothers, and they were the
mm,
children of Saturn and the grandchildren of Uranus, the outer planets. So, in
mm,
astrology, the outer planets, as we call them, are the slower moving planets that shape a generation. So, the inner planets, the ones that are closer to the sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, they move pretty quickly through a zodiac sign from 3 weeks to a couple months, except when they're retrograde. So they more shape the events of our day-to-day lives. Jupiter and Saturn move through each sign for about a year for Jupiter, 2.5 to 3 years for Saturn. Some consider them outer planets, others say they're bridge planets. We think of them as outer. And then uh, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, generation shaping. Uranus takes about 7 or 8 years to go through a sign, Neptune, 12 to 14 typically, and Pluto, around 16 to 20, sometimes longer in a sign.
sometimes a little
So
less too, 12 to
sometimes a little
30
less.
even, it can be. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be up to 30 years. Um, so they move slowly through signs, which means the odds of them coming together in the same patterns really alert astrologers because we go, oh, when did that happen in history last?
Might
Like,
have
for
been
example,
centuries ago. Yeah.
yeah, with the pandemic, there was a Saturn and Pluto meet up in Capricorn that hadn't happened for 500 years, for example. So there was a lot around that. Um, so in this case, what I realized was Saturn and Neptune are in Aries. Uranus is in Taurus until April 25th of this year, and Jupiter is in Cancer until June 30th. Well, Aries, Taurus, and Cancer happen to be the signs that rule the countries of Iran, Israel, and the United States. So the Islamic Republic of Iran was founded April 1st, 1979.
So it's an Aries.
It's an
Makes sense
Aries.
with that strict iron-fisted regime. Yeah.
Hmm. And so now Saturn and Neptune are there.
Hmm.
Israel established its statehood May 14th, 1948, when the sun was in Taurus, and Uranus is in Taurus until April 25th. And the United States, July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence, that was when the sun was in Cancer. So countries have zodiac signs, and those are based on when they officially declared their statehood or sovereignty, or, you know, became under new rulership, as a, not necessarily leadership, but so this is kind of wild because from January 26th of this year until April 25th is when we have this happening. I don't know when if in history we could find a time that that happened all at once, that those four planets were all in those signs at the same time, but it would
Mm.
probably have to be thousands of years ago, at least hundreds. I can't think of a time because it's very unusual. So let's look at that. So Iran has Saturn and Neptune. Saturn, like Tali said, is that iron-fisted leadership, that authoritarian rule. It's also structure. Neptune is the sea, controlling of the waterways. Neptune is also deception and illusion and confusion. Like, do they have nuclear weapons? If they do, how many?
Mm.
What's really going on? Are they gonna, you know, are they planning an attack? People are having 9/11 flashbacks here in New York, but at the same time, like we don't even know. And also Neptune um, and Saturn are opposites. So while Saturn can be kind of like a harsh authoritarian regime, Neptune are people, could be an innocence. So the people who are being victimized by all the bombings, the girls' school, just, you know, if you didn't have a chance yet, we did a special episode this past week too of the podcast. We decided to start a new series that we'll do occasionally called On This Planet, where we're just talking mostly about Earth issues, human interest and humanity and human rights issues versus what's going on in the stars. So I had a conversation with our close friend Netta Sarmast, who's an Iranian American filmmaker. She was a music executive for many years. Managing bands like Bon Jovi and Motley Crue. We met in a transformational workshop right after September 11th and found ourselves caught in this surprise moment where she came back in from the bathroom while I was at the front of the room being coached in front of 150 people, and the leader pulled her into my coaching. And from this profound moment that we shared, I found my voice. She was led to find her purpose, which uh, resulted in her making an amazing documentary called Nobody's Enemy: The Youth Culture of Iran in 2005. So we talked about that and her life going back and forth to Iran in the 70s and 80s during the revolution and after. So,
Her stories are so powerful that, she shared with you in the interview. I feel like I got, a slice of life for what it was like in Iran, what it is like now, the poetry of the culture and the people and how
yeah.
it's still alive and,
I mean, one of the people that she met while she was doing the documentary was a young man named Yas, and he was an underground, because everything had to be underground, hip hop artist. His father had brought a Tupac CD back from his travels, and Yas uh, was born just a couple days apart from Tupac, both Geminis, and had the same deep voice. So
Mm.
he was kind of known as the Persian Tupac. And Netta ended up bringing her music industry prowess and making him into a superstar. He has more than 9 million followers on Instagram. He's a global artist. Won an MTV award. So she's just an amazing person. These are not the stories that you're going to
Right.
typically hear about the people of Iran or in the diaspora.
And he
So
can't even collect royalties on his albums,
yeah.
right? Because
Yeah,
of
she
the
talks
laws.
about all of that too. So and a lot more. So it's I hopefully you will, if you feel interested by this topic, you'll listen to that to also hear. We really did listen when people said they want to have some hope too. So we're not
Yeah.
here to give false hope, but we know that personal stories and real conversations can be extremely healing. So check that out. We'll drop the link in the show notes. Now back to the
Well, I
astrology.
mean, just like the planets in the sky are always, multi-dimensional and layered and doing different things. Everybody's story within a culture, within this world is also layered. And what's happening, I think, right now that we're seeing is this attempt to just really put everyone in boxes and then have them fighting with
Yeah.
each other. It's like
Yeah.
Jews versus Arabs, Russians versus Ukrainians, Indians versus Pakistani. That's just scratching the surface, but it's like I said, the weaponization of faith, evangelical Christians versus, United States of America's secular, liberals. It's like we are fighting these weird holy wars,
We're
and
all being, yeah, we are. And we're
we're being
all being,
dragged in, and our stories are being flattened. That's the thing. It's like
that's the
you don't
word.
hear about you don't hear about a Persian rapper. You don't hear about the activists anti-war in
In
Israel.
Israel. Yeah. Well, one example that really reminded me of why we feel so strongly about our common humanity was what happened in Detroit this last week. There was a man who was um, a Lebanese American man who tried to bring some explosives to Temple Israel in Detroit. And, in Detroit, we have a concentrated Jewish community in an area called West Bloomfield, but we also had one of the largest Arab populations outside of the Middle East because during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, there was a huge refugee wave that came to Detroit of Christian Arabs, Christian Iraqis, mostly called Chaldeans, Lebanese, Syrian, and so that's what we grew up with. We grew up in, Middle Eastern in the Midwest. Netta and I talk about that in the podcast. So what happened in Detroit, even though there's a lot of tension right now because of the populations there are also a lot of bridges, a lot of people who grew up with each other. Some people grew up separate, but a lot of us grew up, I don't know if I want to call it integrated, but we were all in the same schools and camps and libraries and universities and that sort of thing, and neighborhoods. And so we're saying, hey, that's not our story. The story of hate and
Mhm.
division is not the story that we lived, that we know. You have Arabs who've been to Shabbat dinners. Our mom went to an iftar. Our mom was a rabbi, went to an iftar right after that happened. She has an
What is an
interfaith organ
iftar? Is the dinner at the end of the day when you're of the
of
fast for
Ramadan. Yeah.
Ramadan, right?
Hmm. Yeah. So,
And we
there are,
need to have those stories are being suppressed. Both, people are
yeah.
afraid even from within. This is how insidious hate can become, is that people within the Muslim community or the Jewish community are even, condemned and attacked by people within our own culture
Yeah.
for sharing a pluralistic viewpoint, a
We're talking
humanistic
about
viewpoint.
coexistence. Now, it doesn't take away from what this is the thing. Like
Of course, the guy
saying
he had
this,
a truck full of fireworks and gasoline, and he
no,
was
what I was going to say is,
potentially.
though, it doesn't take away from what governments and military and, forces, it does not take away from genocides and all the atrocities. Those are still things that need to be spoken out against. But what Netta and I talked about and just, presented for consideration is the idea that hate does not, as Martin Luther King said, hate does not drive out hate. And, obviously there's a lot of anger that's justified. There's a lot of injustice. There are a lot of horrible things that are being committed in the name of our culture, in the name of Arabs and Muslim culture. And when the people are blamed for it, or when entire groups of people are just, it's just people are very easily saying the Jews, the Muslims, the this, the Iran, like speaking in these
MAGA, although I don't
generalizations.
mind doing that one.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's different. We're
Even,
talking about ethnic
I
groups
know, I know.
here, like that are internet that live in every continent on the globe. It's like there's this assumption. It's a
Like I
time of
said,
duality.
weaponization of faith. Like, why was religion created in the first place
Well, this
for
this is going to go
us to
back to Three
learn.
Eye Atlas too. I've got a little
Oh
intel
yeah.
on
Well,
that
we
one.
should get into that. I just had like little astro Greek fact to share. We talk about our big three in astrology. Well, Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto were known as the big three gods, the three brothers, and
Yeah.
they divided the world among themselves after defeating the Titans. These were Saturn's kids. Jupiter's got the sky, Neptune got the sea, and Pluto got the underworld. It's just so it's interesting that we're talking about that now as we have these three kind of dominating forces, Putin, Xi, and Trump
Hmm.
trying to wrest control of the globe and divide it up.
Wow.
I know China is edging in on Taiwan. Taiwan is the only place that has a chips factory. I know we're working on them here, but it's like to actually build chips,
Yeah.
the conditions have to be so perfected. So when we were kind of looking ahead back in 2023, when we were writing the book, because that was the year that Pluto, which always disrupts everything, moved into techie Aquarius, we're like, what might happen here? There could be a battle, like wars begun over technology and chips. We saw that being one of the things because everything needs a chip now to run. But we didn't anticipate, AI taking over and surveillance like this. We kind of
No.
did, but that came in with,
Mm-hmm.
Aries rules the head and face, all this facial recognition software. And when
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Uranus goes into Gemini, on
Yeah.
April 25th for 7 years. We are going to have no planets in the second half of the year in water or earth signs, the yin signs. Everything's going full fire and air. So, like, we are not going back to those simpler times. We are all, this is, a one
The
year in
future is
numerology.
happening.
Yeah. So on that note, why don't you take us to this? Let's get into Hopi prophecy because this
Yeah,
is where
well, I want to
old
talk
meets
quickly
new.
about
Yeah.
just finish up the conversation about the country's
Oh,
rulerships,
right.
just
Yeah.
to see. I know we've gone all over the
So
place. So
excited for
Mercury and
aliens. I'm
Pisces.
kidding.
Well, I
Yeah, go
mean,
for it.
speaking of, the
So what you're saying
rulership.
is, the US
Yeah, so the
Cancer
US,
ruled, so Jupiter's in Cancer. Israel is Taurus ruled. We have Uranus in Taurus till April 25th.
yeah,
And
and so
Iran is
Uranus
Aries
is,
ruled with
yep,
Saturn and Neptune, just to recap for
yep.
people.
Just to
Yep.
recap, so we have the sort of the suffering of Neptune and the iron-fisted rulership of Saturn happening in Iran, and the waterways, Neptune ruling the seas, waterways, Saturn ruling blockages and control. So we see that playing out literally.
Also, the father and his son became,
Father, yeah.
Khomeini's son,
And
Mojab. I don't know how you say
Saturn
his name.
was,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, Saturn was the father of Neptune. So Israel, Uranus is the rebel. So Israel's a Taurus, but it was formed in 1948 when Uranus was in Gemini. So every 80 to 84 years, the Uranus return happens. It takes 84 years or so for Uranus to return to the sign it was in when a nation was founded, a person was born, to make a full cycle through the zodiac. So as Uranus leaves the sign of Israel, it will return to where it is in Israel's birth chart of 1948 in Gemini. So Uranus is just this nonstop. Uranus is the rebel, the defiant one, the outsider, the icon, the one who thinks that they're kind of the black sheep archetype or whatever. So you can see that Israel has this perception of itself as that the only Jewish nation on the planet, and you can see its
The
defiance
only
and
quote
rebellions
unquote democracy, they
in the
love to
Middle East.
say. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
Close to a
exhibiting
democracy.
Uranus
Yeah.
spins on its side. It's
And
the
Uranus and Gemini is about unexpected partnerships. I
two
don't really,
states,
even though they're
twins.
fighting Iran right now, I don't think Israel is acting without support, and we may find out without support of other Middle Eastern nations. If could be that Qatar or Saudi Arabia is going to get in on all the enemies that the enemy lines could be redrawn. I mean,
Yeah, we'll
yes.
just you wait till what I share what I found out. But I
Hmm.
mean, Uranus, Gemini in the chart, though. I mean, Gemini is the twins. It's so if you think about this duality, it goes all the way back to Abraham's two sons, Isaac and Ishmael, so divided between the Hebrews and the Arabs, the two states, the two people that were living in Palestine before it became Israel. And it's like this duality that is in the DNA of the chart of Israel.
Which
Like,
makes me think, Jupiter, in Cancer, it's almost like, Jews and Arabs are technically cousins. If you go all the way back to Abraham, the Abrahamic religions of Judaism and Islam, it's like here we are having this like family feud on the global stage right now.
and Uranus being the rebel and the individual, so fighting for their individuality, yet being inextricably bound by Gemini. So Israel also has a 4-degree Leo moon, which is being opposed by Pluto and Aquarius at the
It put us
same
right at
degree.
4 exactly now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Pluto is that underworld, underground, destructive, all the shadow that's coming out, and the moon is the home, and all the people having to run to shelters and all over that region. So it's
Yeah,
definitely
I've
going
heard from I've
through.
heard from people, friends in both Bahrain and Dubai. Friend in Dubai says it's kind of the being really conflated by the media. Everyone's going on about their ways with a little bit of, and then, but I do know that in Bahrain, it's really scary right now for people. So, I mean, I'm not saying it isn't scary for people in Dubai. I just had to check in with people there
Yeah.
and, even amidst what was going on for my friend in Bahrain, she still read about the Temple Israel attack in, Michigan and sent me like a check-in about family as I had sent her. And it's just like, this
And that has
is what
always
that is.
happened. Like the
Yeah.
first people, like on October 7th, to reach out to us and us to them were our friends who were Lebanese and Iranian. It's like
Hmm.
just, we're not trying to minimize what's going on in the region and the horrors and atrocities. We're just trying to like make sure that people know we're friends. Some of us are friends, close friends. Being American, being hyphenated Americans with the other side of the hyphen being a Middle Eastern culture, that was a place we were where we all went to share food and culture. It's so similar. So I don't know, I'm just want that side of the story to be told too. So because it's the whole truth. So back to the USA with Jupiter in Cancer until June 30th. Jupiter is can be luck, but it can be cocky, it can be egotistical. Cancer is the homeland. We've talked about this on prior podcasts, this protectionism, this anti-immigrant, this going out into other parts of the world and trying to take them as our own home from Greenland to Venezuela to wherever. So
Hmm.
I hope that ceases June 30th. But it's interesting because in
Yeah.
mythology, Uranus is the grandfather of them all. And that's being represented by Israel right now. Saturn is the father who castrated Saturn or Iran, castrated Uranus in mythology. But then a prophecy said because he had done that, um, you know, his one of his children would usurp his power. And
Mm.
so Saturn was the father of Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto, but the
The big
mother,
three.
yeah, exactly. Um, so Saturn ate his children, so that couldn't happen. But the mother gave Saturn a stone instead of Jupiter, so Jupiter was not eaten and came back and avenged and became the god of gods of all, so, I don't want to
How did
that
how,
that just
did Saturn poop out Pluto and
something like
Neptune?
that. Yeah, yeah, or puked them. No, I think he made him puke up all of his siblings. So, God, if we thought like we were violent just reading any of that, but so now, I've been adding so much suspense, but while Tali was watching the Oscars, one of the reasons I decided not to go have tacos and watch red carpet antics was because Netta and I, um, well, she's an Aquarius and we're Sages, so we love all of the, mystical woo-woo. So we started going down a rabbit hole about Nostradamus, and she reminded me about this 1981. Those of you Gen Xers may have seen this big movie about Nostradamus's prophecies. I probably did long ago, but we were like
Mm.
9 years old at the time, so, or even 8. So our parents probably watched it. Um, but
Okay.
I watched it last night and was reminded of how much of an astrologer Nostradamus was, for
Mm.
starters. And he made these
Wasn't he a Sag?
prophecies. He was a Sag with a Scorpio moon too.
Ooh.
Lived in the 16th century, wrote these things wrote his prophecies as quatrains, which are like 4 line or 4 stanza poems. And he would disguise stuff as anagrams. He was also Jewish. Both of his parents were Jewish, but
Really?
they converted to
Hmm.
Christianity. They were worried about the witch hunts and everything. Yeah. So that's why he would also disguise stuff sometimes as anagrams. So in the midst of, Netta and I finding our common ground
Wow.
in all this stuff,
And I
we
was just busy watching the Oscars. Yeah.
I mean, we've got to divide and conquer sometimes. Sometimes someone has to do the 3D while the other one holds down the 5D. But so another thing that has been coming in and out of my consciousness is Three Eye Atlas. So I had not heard of this. So on December 18th, I went to this New York City astrologers meetup, and I knew the room was going to be filled with like some of the biggest astro geeks out there. I mean, the people that come to these are like really, really into studying everything. And this man stands up and kind of interrupts the guy who's presenting and is like, I want to know if you've heard anything about Three Eye Atlas. And he had it. And the guy was like, Sir, sit down. You're trying to take the conversation in another direction. And the guy was like, This is one of the most important things that's happened. So I was like,
That's
It
so
sounds,
astrology I mean, it's almost like we're
yeah,
back in like, some philosophical, Greek philosophers
I
circle.
know.
It can get heated.
It was definitely giving stoicism. So, but I'm like sitting there, I'm like pulled out my phone. I was like, well, what the hell is this? I got to see what this is. So, it just so happened that the next day, this comet was going to be passing by Earth at the closest distance to Earth. So there have only it was, and as it turns out, it's the third ever object, interstellar object in human history to pass through our solar system. So this is really a big deal. And it came from the galactic center, which is this black
Mm.
hole at the heart of the Milky Way that's at 27 degrees Sagittarius, which on December 19th, the
Interesting.
sun was at 27 degrees Sagittarius,
So a
right as
day
it was
later.
passing.
Wow.
Yeah, right as it was passing through. So it was eerie. Um, and so it was discovered on July 1st, 2025, when a telescope in Chile, the Atlas telescope, happened to spot
Mm.
this unusual object. And um, I don't know why I started thinking about it so much over the past couple days. Again, um, one of my coffee shop friends, David, mentioned, he was like, Have you heard about it? And I was like, Yeah, I have. I haven't like kind of dip in and out. He's like, I want you to figure out what it means. So, of course, I love a challenge.
Mm.
And so I happened to see that today, March 16th, as we're recording, is the day that it's passing by Jupiter and is fading out, leaving the solar system. So only from July 1st, 2025 until today, March 16th, 2026, has Three Eye Atlas come through our solar system. And on October 29th, so this is so it's linked to Hopi prophecies and Nostradamus prophecies, which I'll
Mm.
get to in a minute. But on October 29th, it reached its closest point to the sun, which is called perihelion.
Mm.
And it started out as red, appeared as green partway through, and then it turned this bright blue, like
Mm.
brighter than the sun, even. It kind of broke every brightness model that scientists had seen. And it was hidden from every telescope on Earth at that moment and
Wow.
only visible to space-based instruments.
Wow.
Yeah. So what's wild about this is that the Hopi, and we've been quoting this Hopi elder's speech, all year in our talks. We've been giving the
Mm-hmm.
quote about 2026. We are the ones that we've been waiting for by June Jordan, and that was restated in a 2000 speech by the Hopi elders, as sort of a prophecy,
Mm.
and the Hopi have a prophecy about a blue star called the blue star Kachina
Mm.
that would come when the world was at a major turning point. So there's a rock in the Hopi mesas of Arizona called Prophecy Rock, and this is literally etched into the stone there. So the idea is that there are two paths, and one would be a path of technological advancement that would defy natural law and you know be very challenging for humanity, and the other path was for humanity to
Mm.
live in tune with nature, and this is sort of a choice moment for that. So um Three Eye Atlas, the Hopi followed the stars, Sirius, Orion, and this is connected in a minute to Nostradamus. But
Mm.
so I decided I'll do the chart for October 29th for that day that um, Three Eye Atlas came close to the sun and turned blue, bright blue, and you know confused the hell out of astronomers all over again. And what was happening on that day? Well, on that day was a grand water trine too. October 29th was a big day. So now let's bring in Nostradamus before I get into that. So this is the
Mm.
rabbit hole. Forget about the Oscars. This is the rabbit
You're
hole.
sounding
So
like Candace Owens dissecting Erica Kirk's life, and I'm here for it.
Nostradamus, one of his prophecies, said something about when Saturn is in Cancer and Jupiter and Mars are together. Well, we had Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn and Mars together on October 29th in a grand water trine.
Jupiter in Cancer. So the grand trine was Jupiter in Cancer, Saturn in Pisces, Mars in Scorpio, all around 24, 25 degrees, right?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot that went on that day. There was Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica. It was when Pete Hegseth bombed the international waters, ships claiming they were drug boats. Nvidia stock broke $5 trillion that day.
That's
And
right.
there was a lot. It was a government shutdown. It was, about to creep into a month's time.
Mm.
So yeah, there was a whole lot going on. But when Saturn actually was in Cancer and Jupiter traveled with Mars, this dates back to the modern day Middle East formation. So here's something a lot of people don't know. So Saturn was in Cancer 1915 to early 1917. Okay, and also in the 1970s. It's been in there a couple more times, every 30 years. But 1917 was a crucial pivot point in World War II. But it was also when the modern day Middle East was carved up in a secret meeting. So in May, so we had the Balfour Declaration, which promised the state of Israel to the Jews. It was between the British and Rothschild in 1917, but about a year before that, there was this secret meeting in May of 1916 when Saturn was in Cancer and Jupiter was with Mars in fire signs, just as Nostradamus predicted. Uh, there was a meeting called the Sykes-Picot meeting.
Mm.
There was an agreement secretly signed called the Sykes-Picot Agreement. And it was a backroom deal between the British, the French, and co-signed by Russia that dismantled the entire Ottoman Empire and drew borders in the
Wow.
Middle East. Yeah. These two men met in secret, carved up the Middle East from Lebanon to Syria to Palestine and assigned it among themselves and went and promised it to multiple groups of people. They promised the same land to one group as they did to the other. It was a secret redrawing of the world to benefit them.
Which
And
feels like
that
it's happening, right? Another big three.
another big three, and that was one of the things that set the stage for all the conflict in the Middle East today when
Mm.
that happened. So,
That was 1915 to 17.
yeah, that was in May 1916. So, according to this prophecy, when Saturn was in Cancer and Jupiter was with Mars. So,
Mm.
all May 1916, Jupiter and Mars were traveling together in Leo and Aries, and Saturn was in Cancer. So, I'm just checking the astrology of
Mm.
it all. So, um, but then there's another Nostradamus prophecy that involves this blue star. So he said the great star will burn for 7 days. The cloud will cause two suns to appear. The big mastiff will howl all night when the great pontiff or pope will change country. And he said something about it happening in April. Well, last April, right before Three Eye Atlas appeared, Pope Francis died, and the big mastiff, Canis Major Leo, Pope
Mm.
Leo from
Oh,
another
wow. Interesting.
country,
Yeah.
came into power May 8th of 2025. But this is wild. The Vatican, so Pope Leo, um, is a scientist. So, this group of summer astronomers who were at the Vatican, because the Vatican has an observatory and has a whole astronomy program. In fact, the Pope on July 21st, 3 weeks after the Three Eye Atlas was discovered, went and looked at the telescope and was photographed and looked at the moon and
The Pope
celebrated
did. Wow.
the Pope did, yeah. Pope
Okay.
Leo. Yeah, he has a science background. He stood in the Vatican Dome, the Vatican Observatory, 19 days after the Three Eye Atlas was discovered in Chile, and quoted St. Augustine, who called the wonders of the universe seeds sown by God. So the cloud that caused two suns to appear, well, the Three Eye Atlas comet was as bright or brighter than the sun, but Sirius was considered a second sun or the spiritual sun by the Egyptians. So there's a whole lot that I'm unpacking. I'll probably have to make a separate video about it because it's going to be interesting. But he says the big mastiff will howl all night. So the Pope is involved in this. Here's the Pope, and for years people thought the Pope would be exiled, and that's what they thought that prophecy meant. But
Mm.
now the Pope died, and we have our first American Pope. So he changed country. The big mastiff, Canis Major Leo. We have Pope Leo studying the stars. We have, the star Sirius involved and the Hopi prophecies. So more to unpack there, but what happened during the perihelion of Three Eye Atlas is that also some scientists think the reason it was blue is because it opened up almost like a seed pod and released some
Mm.
chemicals or something into the atmosphere of the Earth. So July 2nd or July 1st of 2025 till St. Patrick's Day of 2026. Fascinating, though, to just, I mean, when I hear about something like this, I have to check the astrology of it and see how it lines up. And knowing that Nostradamus was an astrologer, the Hopi followed the cycles of nature, and that is astrology. They actually did follow zodiac cycles too. So, this is kind of a developing story. I don't know what Three Eye Atlas is going to leave
We've got a
behind,
new moon
but
in Pisces this Wednesday. Anything can happen, you know? This is that
yeah,
blue and thinned veil energy,
there's
that's
not a lot of like a lot of just little pieces about Three Eye Atlas. Either people who are just like I said, just exploring it from a scientific or a conspiracy or an astrology view, but not get but I don't know, just the kind of the convergence of the Nostradamus stuff. Sometimes I feel like I get weird psychic messages. I just have this strong feeling I'm supposed to read about something, and then everything kind of comes together. So I've learned to trust that feeling. If you ever get that feeling too, you should probably trust it and just explore,
I mean, while you were
discover.
exploring, I took a crazy, like, astral traveling nap.
Yeah, you
May
could
have
not
mentioned
wake
that
up.
earlier. I was like, and that's why the podcast is actually a little later. We're gonna record it this morning, and then it was like, whew,
Well,
crazy
one of the thing
times.
about the Hopi prophecy is that there were twin stars too. One was red and one
Mm.
was blue. So I was like, what is going on? And
Well, I was on the red
Nostr
carpet. You were,
well, Nostradamus used anagrams, and I remember long ago doing all these anagrams of my name, and they have Hopi and in it, and so I was like, that was sort of stuck in the back of my mind too. I was like, I gotta at least look into this. So, we'll
My name
see.
has latitude and altitude and all kinds of, yeah.
Mine
I
has
think
like
it's like, what is it?
astro editor, author,
Wordsmith.com,
yeah,
wordsmith.org. You can just,
.org.
yeah, you
There's a
can put
bunch of
your,
anagram apps now, and apparently, AI will do
oh,
anagrams
I'm
too.
sure.
Netta and I were, said her name is Made a Star, and
Really?
she
Oh,
has, yeah,
wow.
yeah, and she's made so many people into stars. So from
Oh,
Richie
that's
Sambora to
funny.
Yas. So go down an anagram rabbit hole with Mercury retrograde in Pisces.
That's
You'll
a good thing
find.
to do. Mix
I
up the
mean,
letters
my
of a word. That's so Mercury,
my
even
name has
direct in Pisces.
Astro, author, editor, Hughes, the name of our magazine, Adios, which is the name of my book, Adios Barbie,
Has
Duo,
profit
Star
in it too,
Duo.
doesn't
Yeah,
it?
that's Prophet, Hopi. I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
Mm.
But yeah, I thought that was wild. So yeah, if you really need to not watch hateful social media posts for a minute, go anagram your name and the name of
Hmm.
those you love. And
Wordsmith.org.
wordsmith.org was a great
That's
one.
a good
So
one. And what about Cobblarians? That one that like gives you an interpretation of your name
I think
too?
that's the numerology. Every letter is assigned a number. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it'll tell you what that is. Like that, well, that's why I started going by Ophi instead of Ophira, even though Ophira is kind of a prettier name. It was a four, which is like this sort of somber, heavy energy, whereas Ophi was a three, which was lighthearted, joyful, and playful. And I was like, I like that much better. So
I
drop
think
the raw. Yeah.
I think Tali is a one, but I don't remember.
Oh yeah. Well, we know where
Well,
she's
now I know
going
what I'm
tonight.
gonna do after I edit the podcast.
Let's cap off the week. Mars and Jupiter. Yes, not Saturn and
Forming a
Cancer.
water trine.
Nostradamus. Yeah.
So there's definitely a power struggle coming at the end of the week, as if we didn't have enough of them already. Mars, planet of war, planet of combat, planet of courage, is in a trine, which is a fluid flowing angle with Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter being Zeus, Jupiter being. So I think it's like a little bit of a might is right energy, but I do think we'll see some interesting alliances emerge. I also do worry because these are in water signs that what is going to happen on that Strait of Hormuz or other places like that. Just, the Marines have been sent, there's talks of flotillas. I just think the waterway battles could be pretty bad at the end of this week. We may also see, with the waters, some compassion and, women gathering. It's a good time to gather
Do
together
that
with people,
yourself.
family, your
Send,
human
yeah.
family, your community that
Spring
actually
equinox, send some water loving, heart
balance.
centered energy into the world.
Yeah. I mean, it could also mean a treaty made by, force as well. So maybe forced peace. I hope that this is good for women. The Save America Voting Act is not going to be good for so many people if that passes, and hopefully it won't. And it won't. I'm just already going to manifest that.
They're just trying to like create a
Yeah.
shutdown and
Well, we have
filibuster and all
storms
that.
this week, so everyone stay safe on the East Coast. They're already shaking up DC. There's some flooding going on. We also have, government partial shutdown, which is affecting TSA during Mercury retrograde. So
Oh
flights
boy.
being delayed. So if you're traveling, just, I feel like that Mars, Jupiter, and water signs, it's almost like I just want to stay home a little bit and be with my people, find your people, gather with your people,
Yeah.
create that human family because well that's what we have to lean into at this moment in time. We have more too, but there's so much power in the hands of a few right now being abused on the world stage that can make people feel hopeless. And Pluto in Aquarius, the sign that rules hope, can pull hope into its underworld. We don't need to stay there. The North Node, the lunar North Node, is going into Aquarius July 26th. So the second half of the year does look a lot brighter, but these times, these hard times, these tough times are where I think we do some of our most powerful human evolution. And that's not trying to put some Pollyanna spin on the horrible things happening, but like we find power out inside of ourselves in these moments, and that's how we take it back from these outside forces that we've been assigning it to. There could be a general strike that comes in the second half of the year, as people say. I'm saying file an extension on your taxes in the United States if you can, and then there will be you have till September to pay your taxes and without penalty. So don't give, you're against war, don't give money to the war machine right now. So, I mean, that's
Well,
just
those are the
one thing
kind
you
of
can
things
do.
that people are doing. And we've been through these cycles in history, even though this one feels unprecedented in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we have an invitation for is something constructive for many of
Mm-mm.
you, especially as the job market is changing so much. Our dear friend Angelina Millare is working together with women tech makers and the Google Developers Group to put on a free 3-day summit called Your Next Win. And we are going to be keynote speaking at it. It's a virtual summit, April 17th, 18th, and 19th. Yes, right at that Aries new moon when
Mm.
7 planets are in Aries. And like I said, it's a day for brand new starts. Well, it is an International Women's Day event, and it's really about bringing your dreams, your ideas, your curiosity, and really finding out how to thrive and bring your ideas to life in the new economy that's going to be emerging as we move into the second half of the decade with all fire and air sign planets guiding us through the second half of the year. So It's your next win events.com. You can get your free pass. If you want replay access, it's only $10. I mean, this is
That's so
thousands of
reasonable.
dollars of training. Angelina has worked with us and, is amazing, evolved human soul and tech genius. And she's bringing together some great speakers, both for live events and ones you can watch. She already has it, so you can watch some inspiring content. It's called Breaking the Pattern, or it's called Break the Pattern. And it's about breaking ourselves out of plateaus and ruts and being the authors of our own future with women, um, and our creativity at the helm. So check it out because I
Yeah.
think
The
it'll be inspiring for just
matriarchy
about
is
anyone.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
She's a
Maybe
fellow
Jupiter.
nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a fellow nerd and has like, she really also thinks of every detail as a Virgo. So you get your badge and you can take notes and record everything that you learn in the session. She's made it all interactive so people really retain what they learn.
Angelina is
And,
the smartest person I know.
I
Like
know, she really
smart in
is.
a like the brainiac way, but also just like she's such a incredible systems thinker and like makes everything she teaches applicable and instantly inspiring. So I love
Well, she's a
learning with
teacher. She's
her.
a
Yeah.
true teacher. The second day, there's going to be a lot of live demos. She's actually going to do vibe coding, which is where you prompt an AI uh, agent to build a website right from your
Mm,
prompt. So she's literally going to show herself doing that. Or there are going to be people who, if you ever want to peek behind the curtain of all this AI stuff or non-AI stuff that you're hearing about, how did they do it? There are going to be people doing that.
mm.
And so it's really well thought out. I totally invite you to come because why not learn some new skills because that's where the world is going. Hopefully,
Totally.
not, in the direction of those mythological Greek gods. But here we are. Here we
The
find ourselves.
technocrats. They're
Yeah,
real, but there's all,
they're
yeah.
real, but we have to also empower ourselves and build. In the 90s, we were launching our magazine Hues to give a
Hmm.
different image and representation of women and inclusivity than the world that was being served to us. And now the world looks like that. So I hope that you'll imagine that what you do today, it might not feel like you're making a difference. You might be doing it because you're frustrated or angry or upset or hurt or excluded, and that's fueling you. You can still build something from that energy too, and be an alchemist on this planet. So, by the powers vested in me by Three Eye Atlas,
Right, exactly. You
I'm gonna
are
start
right.
talking like Nostradamus here. I'm just kidding,
Oh
but
my God.
I hereby declare Mercury retrograde complete. I can't wait to say that on Friday.
Right.
So,
Hear ye, Mercury.
the
Yeah.
spring equinox, after watching those new Nostradamus videos, I'm like, I want to start talking like a
Wait,
fireside
we've got to
chat.
put the name of that. Is it on YouTube? Is it
It's
available
on
on YouTube?
YouTube. Yeah.
Okay,
I
we'll
mean,
put that in the
literally, the
show
guy
notes so that we
smokes
can, yeah.
a cigar while speaking, or a pipe, like in his fireside library. And
It was in
yeah,
1981 it came out, right?
1981. Yeah. Amy from our team, she was like, oh my God, I watched that over and over again. I was like, and that's why you work for
I
us.
just told
'Cause,
my, speaking of indoor smoking, I told my 27-year-old trainer at the gym, like she had never watched Sex in the City. And I was like, and then I was like, oh, it's the best. You should, so she just shared with me a few months later that she binged the whole thing. And she was like, it was just such a different time. I'm like, oh my God, yes, we could go out without being captured on cell phones. But uh, I highlighted the fact that in season one, like Carrie Bradshaw was always like smoking inside. I just remember like going at this is such a like a superficial turn. I'm the red planet, red XAI right now. So like yeah, how just like you would go out. Our dad would like when we were living at home for the summer after our freshman year of college, like we were not allowed to come upstairs in the house until we because our clothes smelled like cigarette smoke. So we had to
My high
immediately go
school
put them in the
boyfriend's
washing machine.
parents
Yeah.
like chain smoked so much, and I'm sure I sucked up all the secondhand smoke for that whole year. But yeah, I would come home and it was just it smelled like an ashtray. I had to come in through the back door and shower.
Go to the washing machine immediately. Yeah. It was
And he wasn't wrong. Yeah. Maybe humanity has evolved
indoor
in some ways.
smoking.
Indoor smoking. That is something I'll never miss. People probably still do it, but not where we live.
Don't invite our dad over if you do. So, well, okay. Well, wishing everybody the best possible week you can have. Find ways to find joy in the spaces between distress about the world. That's what we can do right now. And hopefully find some power in there too.
Go listen to the bonus episode we have with Netta if you need a little
absolutely
hope.
And we have readings
inspiring.
Available with some reading slots open this spring. So if you would like one of us to dive into your birth chart with you as well as your transits and help you map out your life journey, your life path, explain the finer points of it, astrosal.com/readings. We absolutely love doing them for you and meeting you on Zoom. When we do them on Zoom, so it's one-on-one, and we get a good hour and a half to just connect and talk about your life and really get into a great exploration and conversation. So, and thanks to everyone who has booked with us. It's been amazing. So we will be back next week, and happy new moon, everyone. Till next week.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to AstroTwins Radio. If today's episode gave you an aha moment, we'd be over the moon if you left us a 5-star review. It helps fellow astrology lovers find us. And make sure to hit subscribe and follow us on iTunes and Spotify so you never miss an episode. Want the full visual experience? You can also watch the video version on our YouTube at AstroTwins-TV. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at AstroTwins and head over to astrostyle.com to read your free daily, weekly, and monthly horoscope that we write for you with love. Until next time, move with intention and let the universe meet you there.